When COVID stopped us musicians in our tracks last year, I began collaborating virtually with many friends, people I'd been lucky enough to play with throughout my life.
All you got is this moment.
Use my fatal charms,
including my own talented boys. One of these ISO projects became the Quarantine Men, a play on the Beatles' original name, the Quarrymen. And we started out with our focus firmly fixed on the work of the greatest band that ever was, but along the way we've covered many other wonderful acts from the old dart. The latest, set to be released any minute, as soon as our drummer Martin Friedkin finishes editing the clip, is Queen's brilliant Keep Yourself Alive. This song was Queen's first single, as well as being the first track on their first album. I thought this song would be a great one to break down, both the guitar harmonies as well as the process of getting good guitar sounds. Now, I love working out stuff by ear. It's a skill that was born out of necessity, because when I was a kid, there was no internet, so there was no Songstar or Ultimate Guitar tabs or isolated tracks. In fact, there wasn't even any tabs in print form that I was aware of. Hal Leonard was still in short pants. This song presented quite the challenge because there are many layers involved, and with overdrive on all the tracks it made it a pretty tricky challenge to work out exactly what's going on. So look, this is my approximation. I think I got it pretty close, but I guarantee there's parts that differ from what Brian originally played. Let's just call this my tribute, my nod to that great man. The intro. I always loved hearing this great rock riff on this, which Wikipedia informs me is the US release, because Keep Yourself Alive wasn't actually on the track listing enjoyed by most regions. But those double stops. That's amazing. That is so clever. The guitar is chugging away on underneath, but that line suggests a D to an A. So we've got 7/7 on the G and B strings, bending those two up and down, just like not even a half step. And Brian's got a super light touch on this if you have a listen to his picking too. Lots of vibrato, then another quick bend and release, and a pull off to first finger. Now, when it goes back there and hangs on that note a little bit longer, it sounds to me like it's the major third in the A. So there's two ways to achieve that. One is quickly getting that second finger on there to give us a 6 and a 5. Or what I think is more likely, and what I love the sound of personally, is bending that note up, pulling that finger down slightly. This is a secret trick of mine. I don't know if other people do this. I guess they do. You know, I didn't invent anything. But you know, if you pull down on the G string but let the B move under your finger, pull them closer together and you end up approximately with a sharpened G string up to the 6th fret sound, and your E note still sounds the same. Now I can't do it. Especially if you put some vibrato on it. So I've got those two strings touching there, and it sounds like a bit of an out of tune guitar. And then the rest of it is the pentatonic scale in A. Pull off from the 7th to the 5th, A to the G on the D string, E note, 7th fret on the A string, back to the 5th, back to the 7th. Yeah, that is a brilliant riff. That's so cool. Unreal. The guitar solo. Look, I've used 10 tracks throughout this section, but there's really only 3 melodic lines happening at any one time. So, you know, I've got 2 tracks that are the rhythm guitars, panned hard left and right, EQ'd differently, different pickup selector setting, one's neck, one's bridge. I used this guitar, by the way, which is my first decent guitar I had as a kid. It's a Fernandes, a Japanese, obviously a Strat copy, and it's just got one of the loveliest necks, and it's still got its old EMGs in it that I put in at some stage, my younger years. I've bolted down the Floyd Rose just to try and get more tone out of the body. I just kind of got over that floating trem thing. I don't know when I last changed the batteries in these for these active pickups, but look, I grabbed this because it's one of my favourite feeling guitars to play, and when I was sitting here figuring out the parts, and I started laying the tracks down just as guides, and I started EQing, and I thought, I don't think I'm going to get closer. I don't have a Brian May Red Special, and the Red Special isn't really like any other guitar, so everything you're hearing on that track is this guitar. So yeah, rhythm guitars panned hard left and right, EQ'd differently, and one's got that all-important phaser effect on it, which is so characteristic of this song right from the intro. So then we've got a track which is Brian's main melody throughout the solo section. Then there are the two harmonised supporting roles to that solo section. Now I've had to make some educated guesses on some of those notes, but look, I think it sounds pretty bloody close. Another two tracks are those ethereal, reverbed out, synth-like lines that float above the rest of the guitar solo. Yeah, clever. One is that little intro trill that just overlaps a little bit, so I did that on a separate track. I love that lick, by the way, because it's over an F chord at this point, but that is a flat 5 in F, so it's like... So very harmonically interesting right from the get-go. Yeah, clever. And that's 8, so the last two tracks are just to, just to beef up that slide that happens at the very outset of the solo section, you know. You got to pump up those bits. That sort of stuff is purely rock guitar. You can't make that sound on any other instrument. You can't play those notes on anything. So I love getting a hold of those bits and giving them a little tweak just to let everyone know that we're still playing real guitar out here somewhere. So look, I would normally triple or at least double track a recognisable guitar solo like this. But with so many layered parts, when I listened to it, it sounded plenty big enough. So look, I just left it at that. Kind of want to hear it on acoustic. Do you want to hear it on acoustic? Let's do it on acoustic. Now the big crescendo that follows the little breakdown part is based on a run that takes us from E to A, which becomes the 5 to take us back to D for the chorus. So the run just goes. So that's up E major, but with an added chromatic at the end. But then it continues up. Does the same 4-note chromatic to take us up to an A note. Those chords are harmonised to sound something like an E7 to an A7, which makes logical, musical, theoretical sense. So one of those harmonies starts on the 3rd, the G sharp of E. And the top line I played starting on the 5th. So it's just like a triad, and it's starting on an E triad, an E, a G sharp and a B, but I've separated them all by octaves. So my E is down here, my line starting on G sharp, starting up here, and then my line on the B, next octave again starting up here. And that line goes. So the last two notes I had to bend up because I've only got 22 frets on this guitar, so D, D sharp, E at the end. Yeah. So that's those parts. But now you're probably going to hate me for this, but to add another little twist of my own to the song, to our rendition of the song, I've added a descending harmony that cascades down over the top of all those. So there's 3 descending lines there. Digga, 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 digga. You know, Brian May's lines are 8 notes, 1 and 2 and 3, and the descending ones are 1 and a 2 and a 3, and twice as quick coming down over the top to give a point of contrast, point of difference between the two. Now, I'm working in Logic here, but I created this project in GarageBand before I swapped over to Logic. And look, while they're by no means perfect, I reckon I got these sounds reasonably close. Yeah, they're clearly very different, but my recording here certainly suggests the tones on the original and the playing on the original. So look, the way I approach trying to get someone else's sound in any DAW that you might use, it comes down to 3 things in my mind. Number 1 is the gear. Obviously, you know, in this case, as I said, I don't have a red special, I just played it on this, but if you get the right style of guitar, a Strat versus a Les Paul versus a hollow body versus an acoustic 12-string, whatever it might be. And then the effects. So yeah, look, you might not have the same MXR Phase 90 or whatever, but you get a phaser, and you know, I've been doing more and more of everything in the digital domain. I record direct in. I can't remember the last time I mic'd up one of my amps in the room here. I've just found it easier and easier to manipulate the sounds once I get the guitar line recorded. So yes, you've got your hardware, your guitar, and your effects, and you know, the amp if you're going to do that, and then you know, your pickup selector and your tone controls. So then number 2, which I think is more important, is the EQing. You know, I've gotten more and more tonal accuracy, and I've been happier with tones I've been getting just by playing with EQing. So I get my parts recorded, and then I open up a graphic equalizer, and I'll listen to whatever it is I want to sound like, and I try and visualize the tone. I think of it as, you know, you can sing one note, but you can make it sound deep or high or whatever just simply by changing the shape of your mouth from like a oh, you know, that's the same tone, but I'm getting a ooh, very deep muddy sound to a sound with brightness, and you know, that's the same as sweeping along the range of frequencies or the harmonic range while the guitar part is playing, and trying to find a part of that sound that's what yours might be missing or what you need to knock out. But I really find I have to do this in reasonably small doses. I'm sure we've all found it. The longer you sit there and listen and twiddle knobs and change things, and you know, you go to bed that night after hours of processing thinking you're pretty close, you get up in the morning and go, what is that shite? That's not what I thought. I went to bed. I didn't leave it like that. So look, I try and do this when my ears are fresh. You know, if I sit back down here at my studio desk, then I'll have a crack at that. I'll have a quick listen, and if it's something I'm trying to emulate, I'll listen to the original, I'll listen to mine, and I'll search for those frequencies. If it's just something I'm recording that I'm not trying to copy anything else by anyone else, then I'll just listen to mine, and I kind of think, what sounds obnoxious there? What don't I like? Because it's far better to get rid of some frequencies than to add stuff all the time. You know, it's incredible what a difference it makes knocking a couple of dB off a frequency here and there. And what I love to do, I get a band or whatever it's called on my equalizer, and I adjust the Q up so that I'm affecting a very narrow notch, I call it, of sound, and so I can really hear that difference. And I'm pretty heavy-handed with it. I know that we only need to, knock off 1 or 2 or 2.5 dB, but sometimes I'll drag 5 or 10 out just because I go, no, I really don't like that tone. That's not adding anything for me. So I'll sweep it along and I go, yeah, I don't like that, and I'll drag it right out. So yeah, look, the EQing I think is super, super important. Number 3, most importantly of all, is how you play it. If I'm trying to play like Brian May, I'm listening to his touch. I'm trying to pick the way he does. So if I can tell that a note is a hammer or a pull versus being picked, and sometimes you can tell that it's picked upwards, just the sharpness of that attack. You got to do the bends in the right spot. All those little flourishes and little ornaments. We all have our own way of doing things, and a 3-note passage will be played differently between 30 people, 30 different ways. But if I'm doing something like this, I really do try and listen and go, okay, he pulled that note and then he did the next 3 notes are all picked. How am I going to do that? Where do I play it that I can do that fluently? But there's also, how hard is this player touching it? Is quite a light touch, or is he really digging in? There's all that sort of thing as well. Are the notes staccato or legato? Are there parts of the phrase that end up sounding like there's space between the notes? If you slowed it down, can you hear the notes or is it? Which notes have vibrato? Some people always first finger, or other people it might only be for long notes. Some people seem to do it on every note. The wideness of the vibrato. Is the vibrato like, or is it more of a shaking? What's the speed of the vibrato? So that sort of stuff makes the biggest difference of all. In the end, if you execute the performance really well, people will be saying, how did you get so-and-so's sound? And it's not the gear at all. It can be the wrong guitar, the wrong mic, the wrong studio, the wrong settings. But you mimic that player's the way someone plays. Where are they sitting on the beat? Are they ahead of the beat? Are they aggressive with it? Are they laid back behind the groove? That sort of stuff is where you get the most of the sound of some other player, if that's what you're trying to do. Anyway, this song was a ton of fun to figure out and to try and replicate. Look, I might post the final result here as well as on our Quarantine Men channel, just so that you can assess our efforts and how well these parts come together. Anyway, please give me a like, and if you subscribe, ring that bell, and I'll see you soon. Thanks.